So, picking up where we left off after a nice little nap. I'm kind of happy with the way the taper came out. The die grinder uses a piece of live tooling, put a nice ground finish on the inside. And I wanted to do that first because if I screwed that up, there was really no point in going any further. But if you have enough meat here, I'll call this the web area, where the internal bore here has got to blend in with the bore here, and you have to have enough metal here to keep this part rigid and have some kind of life to it. If I had a longer nose, then I could keep playing with it forever until I finally got it dialed in, but this was kind of critical here. And it came out, I thought, pretty nicely, and it allowed me to, so now that I've got it to about the depth that I want this to go in, I shouldn't have to go much tighter than that to clamp this all the way down into its smallest range. And if I do need it, well, I'll just take a little bit more off of here. Because you can see this has a slot here. And the nut, well, besides myself, of course, has this ring inside here. That's the magic of this baby. This is an eccentric nut that allows this piece to be clamped in and retained, so when you pull off the nut, it'll break the bond on the taper and pull it out for you, pull out the collet. I need to leave enough room so when this gets pushed in, this ring doesn't get clamped into that groove against the outer face of this piece here, and that would reduce my tightness and probably throw something off. But this way, don't get pinched, there's no extra wear. I got enough room, and I'm pretty happy with that. So now I'm going to round this off a little bit, give it a lead, and put a thread in there. And I probably didn't show it, and maybe not in the other videos, but basically this is just the Harbor Freight long nose die grinder. And it's good for using freehand because that nose gives you a lot of hold room to keep a good grip on the tool, because anybody who's played with die grinding and stones and burrs know that when it catches funny, so you want that good grip that you can do with, you know, two hands on this baby. You can see though that it does make things on the lathe slightly difficult because it's so honking long. And I control it with just a router speed controller from the same fine company. Get that out of the way. When this thing's in motor mode, this is my only free turning piece of machinery, so I got my choice of having it go this way so I can catch a thread before I plunge in. You know, I'll have to fight the motor to kick in the cross slide, but that's kind of easier to do, and the cogging is a lot finer pitched, where if I try to interrupt the Z motion, it doesn't work out that good. So I'm choosing to go, I'm just yapping a lot, aren't I? I'm choosing to keep my free axis along with the part, rather than using that as my my depth of cut adjustment, because there's really no way to gauge it until you stop the machine and put the nut on it. You know, you can't do it while it's running, so there's really no point in giving me that freedom in and out, because I'll still have to re-index the whole thing. Does that make sense to anybody? Well, I guess you'd have to run CNC before it made any sense. So here's my my factory. Oops. Here's my factory made unit, and the nut got a pretty good fit. So really, there's not a whole lot of reason to try to alter that. So roughly, I want the same thing. I want a maximum, my outer diameter to be about that. Anything, let's see. I'll just switch back and forth, whichever numbers are more convenient for me to deal with. 49.90. Okay, I'll just switch to metric mode. So I want a 49.90 and a rough guess if these things fit in here. Not really. 48, 50, 48. Guess I can try to measure the inside of the nut. And try to take into account the round over. See, now that's measuring different, so I can't trust these things really. Let's go 48.50. So 48.50 on the inside, 49.80 on the outside. And we'll call this 0. Should we set to 400? Okay, I'm going to have to abort that and try to start it over. The amount of clearance I have is so small that it's not taking up the play in the table. I need to change that parameter. The problem here is I was using Mach 3's threading wizard, and I had put in too small of a clearance. And the clearance variable is how far the tool will retract before going back and starting the cycle over again. Well, the number I put in is too small that it was well within the backlash of the table. So in effect, the program thinks the tool's moving all over the place, but really it's just sitting, going back and forth inside the backlash area, and the tool isn't moving at all, so I wasn't getting any feed. So after going back and reprogramming a larger retract, that would just like you would when you're doing it manually, you bring it all the way back, get all the play out, and then move forward until the play's out again, and then start the cutting operation. So just changing that number to a higher number worked out well. Even if I work hard in it. Ooh, those are some chartery threads. Should have went a lot slower. Ow. That took a big chunk out of my thumb. I was able to use the compound to line up on my old thread, so soon should be cutting. Okay, bad part is when I start that over again, since it's a one-line piece of code for a threading cycle, I pretty much got to start over. It looked like I might have been going too far, but I wasn't, so we'll just pick it up again and let it continue on with the cycle. Damn chatter. So I'm happy about that. And that's the mercy of the machine that I'm left with. Try a slower speed. Fortunately, this noise is not chatter, but more or less the cutting of the tops of the chatter marks. Sounds the same, but this one's actually a little more beneficial. By the way, that operation's done. Guess that'll have to work. Yeah, I really wish I had a better bar.